Now I am going to talk about some very helpful things you should know in managerial accounting, and these are the things not the normally teachers don't tell students, but in my teaching experience, this is extremely helpful to know. So what am I going to talk about here? So the thing is, when you're calculating the manufacturing cost, there are some facts you should always know that you will be tested. So when you're finding the manufacturing cost, we already established that there are three manufacturing costs: direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. So in a question, if you're supposed to find the total manufacturing cost, means material, direct material plus direct labor plus the overhead, you would need to know all of the three numbers. But the thing is, you should always know, when you are a company or any business, it's very easy for us to know the direct material we're using. Because we're using, like, let's say, for example, if I'm making a table and I know I used, let's say, 2 feet of wood in the table, I can just multiply that by per feet rate and I find the direct material cost. It's not difficult. That's why when you're giving an exam, direct material is always provided in the question. You don't have to find it. Similarly, the same for direct labor. When you're making a product, you can see that it is taking you 2 hours to make the product. And then you can multiply 2 hours by the rate to find the cost it took you. So that's why direct labor is also given in the managerial accounting questions that you'll see in the exam. The only thing that we never directly know how much we are using is the manufacturing overhead, which is why I'm making this video. So you should always be aware, direct material will be given, direct labor will be given, the overhead is the only one you should always know how to find. That's it. So let's get right into that. So how to find the manufacturing overhead. So first, memorize this two-step structure. So step one will always be to find the rate. What do I mean by the rate? Let me explain. So calculate the predetermined overhead rate. So the formula is basically budgeted total overhead divided by budgeted total allocation base, which is usually direct labor hours or machine hours. Budgeted allocation base. Now just explain what the budgeted means. Budgeted means estimated, okay? Because we do this calculation of the rate at the start of a accounting period. So of course we don't know the actual overhead. We can only estimate the overhead that is going to happen in total. And it's not as difficult as you might think that it would be, because most of the overhead costs are fixed: salaries, rent, depreciation. So it is actually not that difficult to do. But again, if you're a student, it will be given in the question. So easy for you, I guess. And divided by budget allocation base. Allocation base is what thing we will use to distribute the overhead into each product. So again, like I said, usually the rate is calculated based on direct labor hours or machine hours. Again, the question will tell you overhead is calculated based on machine hours. So you'll divide it by the machine hours. So it will be easy. When we get to that, I'll show you. So once you find the rate, step 2 is multiply the predetermined overhead rate, POHR, right, with the allocation base actually used for the product. Now, just to give you more of an explanation why we need to do this overhead calculation, because let's say I have a business of making furniture and I made a table for one of my customers, right? Now there's no way I can like say this much of the factory rent was used on the table, because it's not a direct cost, right? I cannot directly trace it back to the table. Rent is like I pay for the month, right? So it's not directly attributable to the product. So that's why we have to, when we talk about overheads, because overheads are not directly attributable to the products, we have to use this two-step approach to allocate the cost. At the moment, you might be thinking like, what does this mean? What did we just learn here? I just want you to know the structure of how to find the overhead, because when you're solving manufacturing cost question, the students get confused, right? Like how should I start the question? You should start the question by knowing already that direct material will already be given, direct labor will already be given. I just have to find the manufacturing overhead, which I can find with 2 steps. So now you already know what you need to look for. First step, I need to find this number and this number so I can find the rate. And then second, I need to do this. So this actually makes life a lot easier. Now, obviously, we'll solve a question for this.